Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the SAAB Sonett. Hello and welcome back, and if you're new to Quartzlight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're into cars and car brochures, please consider subscribing. Anyway, back to today's episode, the SAAB Sonett. We're going to be looking at a full range brochure for 1973, and we're going to look at the SAAB Sonett within that. So I'll show you today's brochure. So these are actually full range brochures, and as you can see, 1973 SAAB, it's what a car should be, and this one says it's about time a car was built like this. So these are actually car brochures for the US market, and indeed if we zoom in on this stamp, it is actually a dealer stamp for Brooklyn, like Brooklyn, New York by the looks of it. Anyway, let's open the brochure up and have a look inside. As we turn over the first page, it kind of gives you the range all together on one page, starting off with the SAAB 95 and SAAB 96, the SAAB 99s of course, and then this, the SAAB Sonett, and this is going to be the SAAB Sonett III. There's also the Sonett 2 and Sonett 3. Surprisingly, so the original Sonett went from 55 to 57, Sonett 2 1966 to 69, and then this one, the Sonett 3, went from 1970 to 1974. And interesting, this was also sometimes referred to as the SAAB 97 to kind of fit in the range, make a bit more sense. I think the main visual difference with these Sonett 3s, pop-up headlights rather than just headlights in the front there. It's hard to tell, but these were really small cars. But let's move on till we get to the page for the Sonett. And these appear in the last few pages of the brochure after the SAAB 99. Like I say, it's surprising how small these little cars. Strangely, it says at the top here, we build only 2,500 of them a year for the entire world. I think there was around about 8,000, over 8,000, maybe 8,300 built between 70 and 74 for this SAAB Sonett 3, I do believe, although I'm not 100% sure that is a correct figure, but that's what I seem to believe is the correct figure. Anyway, let's just zoom in on the main image of this unusual little car. There it is in this unusual, almost like a purplish colour, this one. Now, one of the things that always surprises me is how small they are. It's hard to really judge in pictures, and when you see them in real life, you're amazed how small they are. Really low down car, but one thing you certainly would never think of this being a SAAB, really. It is a strange little thing that they actually produced. You can see this sort of lift up sort of tailgate idea, and I guess if you see the people, it almost gives you an image, because I'm sure that lady isn't very tall and she's way higher up than the car, isn't she? You can also make out these pop-up headlights, and if I look at the next image, and it's a car in movement, so I think it's designed to be blurry, that's not the camera. You can see these pop-up headlights there in action, and then we get a little bit of a look of that interior with those unusual seats. So it starts by saying, naturally, a lot of people who would like to have a Sonett will never be able to get their hands on one. There just aren't enough of them to go around. Yet, in spite of the fact that the Sonett is a limited production sports car, it happens to be one of the most people can afford. In fact, a fully equipped Sonett costs just a couple of $100s more than any other sports car in its class. Bit of a strange thing. It starts by saying it's cheap and then says it's more expensive than other sports cars in its class, but that's where the similarity ends, because our sports car has some things that most other sports cars don't have. Things like front wheel drive, a fiberglass body, dual built-in roll bars and retractable headlamps. It also has rack and pinion steering, a 1.7 litre V4 engine, we'll come back to that engine size in a moment, and with a 4-speed gearbox, a true aerodynamic body design, front disc brakes, moulded bucket seats, a leather covered steering wheel, an anti-rust and corrosion treated bottom, and full instrumentation. As you can see, we build the Sonett with the things that make it one of the most exciting sports cars you'll ever drive, and one of the most sensible in every respect, including price. Now if you look at the next brochure, again the SAAB Sonett comes at the end, and I actually call it the SAAB Sonett III this time, comes at the end of the brochure, although weirdly this brochure starts with the 99s and the model before this is the 95, but they've still positioned the SAAB Sonett right at the end. A different colour, which is one of the reasons I wanted to include this brochure as well, so let's just look at these images. I think personally a colour that kind of like suits it more, and again this brochure is for the US market, and really the SAAB Sonett was really kind of like intended for the American export market, but I think a few were offered to the Swedish domestic market in sort of like late 60s, early 70s as well. If we look at more images, we can actually see a rear image on this one as well. Give you an idea of the back and that SAAB badge, and again that guy really leaning down just to show you how low and small these cars were. Again a very small image of the seats. We do have an idea of the dashboard there, that sort of wonderful Sonett III badge on there as well. Gauges you would expect to see, they're kind of like you would see these on the SAAB 95s and 96s in 73. And then a tiny little image of this orange example with its lights up. Text in this brochure tells us the SAAB Sonett is an exciting new idea in sports cars. It's the first sport car at a sensible price with all the features of a custom built car. Features like a distinctive fiberglass body, semi-monocoque chassis, 4-speed gearbox and dual built-in roll bars. Take the body for example. Sure, it's sporty looking, but it's also very aerodynamic. In fact, tests show the Sonett has an incredibly low drag factor of 0.31, one of the lowest in the industry. All this means you can go much faster with much less power, and while you're going faster you're getting much better gas mileage because the engine doesn't have to work as hard. Of course, it's no coincidence that SAAB would build a very aerodynamic sports car. After all, we're one of Europe's largest builders of jet aircraft. But you won't really appreciate Sonett until you come to the first set of S's in the road. Then you'll see why we say front wheel drive makes a car handle better. With front wheel drive, the wheels that steer the car are the wheels that pull it, so the car has to go right where you want it to go. And Sonett is one sports car you don't have to put away in mothballs when the winter rolls around. Like all SAABs, it's virtually oblivious to ice, rain, snow and skidding. And because it has a fiberglass body, there's no need to live in constant fear of winter salt eating your car up. Of course, there are lots of other Sonett features that are equally easy to appreciate, like a 4-speed shift on the floor, moulded bucket seats, a leather covered steering wheel and front wheel disc brakes, and full instrumentation. Plus the fact that Sonett has roll bars both in the windshield pillars and behind the seats. All in all, Sonett is for the man who always wanted to own a custom built sports car but couldn't afford one until now. And that's kind of like one of the interesting things as well, the gear lever on the floor, because if you looked at the SAAB 95s, 96s, that the shift was actually on the steering wheel as in a column change. So at the back of this brochure are the specification page for all the models, but of course we're just going to concentrate on the Sonett. But as you can see, the SAAB 95 and 96 is for the first two columns. These are just the weights and dimensions, but if we move down, again we can see the 95 and 96 in the second column there, and then the SAAB Sonett, or like I say, SAAB 97, which they sometimes use as it kind of like fitted better into the SAAB range at the time. Now, one of the things you will notice is the engine's quite unusual for the US. Yeah, it's a V4 as you would imagine for these Saabs at this time. The SAAB Sonett using the same engine as the 95 and 96. But in America, it increased in size from a 1500 to a 1700cc. As you can see, it's a 1698cc engine. The reason why they changed the engine size actually was to meet emission regulations and still had the same sort of performance as before. These 1698cc's are a low compression engine, but like I say, it's keeping the same power as the previous smaller engined model. So no real increase, but like I say, I don't think they wanted it to decrease when the emissions changed in the US. What more information we can see? It's got 65 bhp at 4700 rpm. Well, of course, the Sonett would have felt far livelier than the 95s and 96s. Far lighter car with that fiberglass body and a more streamlined shape. If we move down, we can see some information about the transmissions. 4-speed manual, of course. And then further down still, we've got information about brakes, suspension, steering and wheels, discs at the front, drums at the rear. Okay, and if we move to one side, it kind of like gives you information about how it's distributed in the US, a few different addresses there, and of course the Swedish address right at the bottom. So there we go, the SAAB Sonett. It's certainly an unusual car, certainly not a car I've driven in, but I've certainly seen them, and they are way smaller than they actually seem in pictures. They are quite a very tiny little car, and certainly not a car you really would think of when you think of SAAB. For example, look at that bumper, not much protection up front really, has it? Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. If you remember these cars, please jot in the comments. Always very interesting to read. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. That really helps the channel. And we'll see you very soon. So take care and goodbye. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I've just put a couple of different videos on there you might be interested in, and also a little bit of the logo for Coors Light. If you click that, that gives you the opportunity to subscribe. But like I say, thank you for watching and all the best.